Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's show of Roc'N Recovery. My name's Carol Michelle.
And my name is Carlee.
And we'll be right back with a really good show. Thanks for watching Roc'N Recovery this week. I am here with my co-host, Carlee Hulsizer. How was your week, Carlee?
Very interesting.
Really?
There have been a lot of changes going on in Carlee's world. I think the biggest one being that, I know that on the show and in the past, I've talked a lot about Youth Voices Matter and the work that I was doing with youth recovery. And I just wanted to give a heads up to everybody. I transitioned out of that role and looking forward to some interesting things on the horizon. And I just wanted to say that because in recovery it can be very difficult to make big changes like that. It can be scary, which it was. It can be exciting, which it is. But it's hard to take a leap of faith and just do something or change anything.
Absolutely. And it's just not a recovery thing. That's a human thing. Like any changes, especially leaving a career, right, that you're good at. And
thank you.
transitioning into something else, it's, letting go of old ties could be really hard. Good for you. It was
hard. Yeah. I'm sad and so are they, which, but it's not easy, but it was necessary in order for me to grow, and I need to not feel guilty. I think that anytime we make a change and it affects other people, we need to not feel guilty if we're making that change for ourselves. So,
Well, one thing I know about you is before you make any major changes, you take time to pray on it. And give it some thought, like what will the repercussions of this be? It's not like an impulsive, I think today I'm going to do something else.
I tend not to be impulsive, a Venn diagram, a pro and cons list, just something to kind of weigh out, what is going to be, like you said, the repercussions or the consequences for those changes, because it doesn't come without any consequences, any change, so just being prepared for that as best you can.
Yeah, that's cool. So, speaking of changes, okay,
yes.
Monroe County's going through some changes.
They are.
As we found out last week, they are going to be hiring an addiction support services director for Monroe County, which will be a position specific to the addiction issue that we're having and recovery resources to help kind of navigate and make things run smoothly across the board, right? Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I like the fact that there are going to be 6 people, more boots on the ground underneath that person. I think that the structure of it is ideal for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we're going to have somebody orchestrating things in Monroe County, I'm really excited, to see like all of the resources kind of brought together and in a way that where we can all work together, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, in theory it sounds really good and on paper it looks really good, but I want to see some action, like what's it going to look like, not like in a bad way, just I'm excited to see what comes out of all of that.
Yeah, we don't want it to turn into one of those all talk things where nothing gets done, but if we have the right people in the right positions, we know that it'll be great, right?
Which I am confident they will do.
Absolutely. So I got some more good news for you.
Oh my goodness. This is too much good news.
Right? Our friend, Dominic Esposito.
Yes.
Who you may remember from the Opioid Spoon Project.
I do remember Dominic.
Yup. He's going to be coming back to Rochester soon.
Oh, goody.
And I know he has a huge fan base here in Rochester. We love him.
He's got a huge fan base everywhere. Who doesn't love him?
Right?
Yeah.
He's a great guy. So for anybody that doesn't know, he is the artist that created a 700-pound spoon, okay?
Goodness.
And he put it in front of Purdue Pharma Just to kind of say that, we want to hold you responsible for all of the overdoses and addiction that you caused. And he ended up getting arrested, right? So it was a whole big, huge thing. So now he creates these spoons and he lets people put the name of their loved one on the spoon that maybe they've lost to addiction as a remembrance of them, right? And it's really healing. I know that when he came to Rochester last year, you were able to put a name on the spoon. Can you tell everybody what that felt like?
It was, I cried a lot when I was writing this person's name, and it was definitely empowering. Maybe not empowering, but it was more not closure. It was just something to remember this person by, especially because we didn't have anything super traditional or formal to remember her by, but just being able to do things, even minor things now, other than the spoon, to remember her, and it's important to not forget.
Yeah, I think even the camaraderie that we had with other family members, writing people's name on the spoon, that working together and seeing other people heal through the process, that was empowering.
I really liked how, everybody was very emotional. And, the hugs were given, and everyone was talking and crying, and it was, I hate to say it was beautiful, but it really was beautiful to see, the pain shared being pain lessened. And that was, a perfect visual representation of that saying.
Yes.
So.
Okay, well, we have to go to a break.
Oh.
But we will be right back. Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying with us on Roc'N Recovery. I am still here with Carlee Halsizer.
Yes.
And we've been talking about different resources that are available in Monroe County. And the numbers for June came out recently from the Heroin Task Force, led by our favorite sheriff, Todd Baxter.
Yeah.
And there were 13 fatalities due to overdose in June.
How does that compare to last year at this time?
Last year there were 13 as well.
Okay.
So with the availability of Narcan and stuff, you would think that the overdoses would be going down substantially, right?
Right.
But they're either going up or they're holding steady. And across the U.S., if you look at it nationwide, the overdose deaths have spiked and overdoses are way up.
Yeah. COVID.
Yeah.
I hate to say that that's the only factor, but it's the most obvious one, especially when we see, we've talked about it before on the show. Anybody who's watched us the past few weeks knows where we stand with that, and that, because people aren't getting to in-person meetings and there's a lack of in-person peer support, and everything's over the phone, and there's no community. There's a lack of community. We're gonna see that. And it's unfortunate, but that's, we should have seen this coming. I hate to say it that way, but it's especially at a time when we're seeing all of this, there's so much, there's so many cuts being made to budgets across the state too. In treatment, I think the average is 31% budget cut.
Wow.
And I'm we just can't have that. It's at a time when people need this the most, we're going to cut everything. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, what's going on, right?
I don't know.
Another factor, I think, is that people think that treatment is not available now, and people who are looking for recovery, and it's scary, right? When you put down the addiction and you want to change over to recovery, it seems like it would be a relief, but it's scary, right? And in your mind, you're thinking, well, I can't do it now because of, COVID-19 and this is closed and that's closed or whatever. So people, I think, don't realize that the services are still there. Yeah. You could still get help now, right?
I think to your point, too, with thinking, well, now that there's COVID, I'm not going to be able to recover or enter recovery. I think, too, in terms of me, I used every excuse in the book, And COVID's just another excuse that people might be using too. Like, I know that if I was using right now, I'd probably say, well, COVID is going to make it too hard. It's being afraid and that fear of changing and getting into recovery makes it difficult.
It's scary.
It is scary.
Right? Even good things could be scary.
Like you talked about earlier with the new with resigning from my position. It's change is not easy. But if we look at ourselves and we honestly want the best, like live our best life, like we need to make changes. And it's a difficult thing to learn.
Yeah, it's important to be able to have coping skills in place to deal with, like, a lot of people are going through chaos, right? Either because they're not working regularly or they're working from home, and children have been home more often. And so there's a lot of stressors that are out there. And as we know, stress is a big, huge impact on people's addiction.
I almost wonder how misuse or people that regularly use, let's say, alcohol or marijuana, how the stressors of your children being at home, your spouse being at home, domestic violence on the increase, like how that's played a part where it's transitioned from regular and social use to misuse and overuse, and into having substance use disorder or something. How normal substances or substances that are more recreational have been misused during this time. I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there were some statistics on that too, right? Because we know that if there's nothing, like there's no consequences of, well, I got to get up early to be at the office tomorrow morning.
Right, if you're no longer working, and I mean, there's no, what are the consequences?
I'm home in my pajamas anyway.
Right, so
Right?
you might as well. Yeah, I would really be interested to see how this has affected that population of people.
With a lot of things, I think it's going to take time for all of these statistics to come to light and to really see what the consequences of this, like, shutdown.
It's going to be a while before we see those statistics, I think. There's so many different layers to it, and it's like, I was just talking with some people earlier on a conference call, and we were talking about how, you know, there's people that are reporting, like, the percentages of people that are impacted by addiction, and then the percentage of people who actually are in recovery or are struggling with substance use disorder. And the percentage seemed low to me, and it's like, well, if I was struggling, would I really want to disclose whether or not I'm struggling right now, or would I even think that I'm struggling, because it just seems so natural for me to be using? And I think it's gonna be a while, and statistics are weird, man. Like, statistics are weird. Especially when you're asking something so personal of somebody. It's like, are we really getting accurate data? Food for thought, people.
Yes, plus a lot of people have the anonymity thing going on, where
That too.
it's you know, due to the career that they're in or their family or whatever, they don't want to say that they've ever had a problem with substance use disorder.
Yeah.
Right? Yep, absolutely. Okay, we have to go to a break.
Aw.
But we will be right back. Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying with us on Roc'N Recovery. So we've been talking about, you know, what's happening in our area now with COVID-19 and the restrictions that are placed on families. And one thing that, you know, it's an issue that's very close to my heart is the kids.
Yes.
And
Mine too.
Yeah. You know, we have a lot of young children at home with parents who are suffering with substance use disorder. And it's, you know, when there's school or, you know, a place of refuge for a child to go during the day to get kind of like a break from the chaos that's happening at home, it's a good distraction for kids, and it allows them to have a little bit of their youth, their childhood back, right?
I totally agree, and I think that, you know, when we talk to kids that are being affected by this, I mean, school is a huge one. I mean, I know, even working with Youth Voices Matter in the past, like, talking about talking with young, I'd say youth, probably in their early teenage years, who aren't necessarily using, but they have a family member that are using. I remember being at one particular youth clubhouse and talking with them, and them saying, school and this clubhouse are like my only place of refuge and just safety. I feel like a normal kid when I'm with other people, and I can escape kind of the chaos of life at home, and that just breaks my heart. And it's hard. It's got to be really hard for those young people that are, not going to school, and being home with that chaos all the time.
And especially with the added stress on, the parents or the caregivers on top of it, making it worse, and then there's no outlet.
And it's not even like you can actually, maybe a parent not using would say, oh, you can't play with your friend. I'm not sure how a parent who is currently using would handle that situation because of COVID. But it's not even like, realistically, especially in the beginning, when we were completely shut down, a young person could say, oh, well, I can't go to school, but I'm going to hang out with Jimmy down the street. Because Jimmy's parents probably wouldn't let that happen. So there's really no escape. There really was none that was safe and, lawful, so.
Yeah. It makes you really appreciate, not that the programs and resources that are available to children are like at a standard that we would accept, but it was something, at least. A place for a child to be able to get a little attention if it's lacking at home, or confide in somebody, right?
Yeah, even at church where I work with the young little kids there, it's only an hour and a half when church was open on a Sunday, but you'd be surprised what these 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds would say, and to confide in somebody like a trusted adult and say these things and kind of be like that one ear that they know they're going to see on Sunday, that one person that they know they're going to see that's like a constant. It's so important, even if it's just 1 or 2 kids out of a class of 20, 25, it's so important that we can be that trusted adult for a child.
Yeah. Some years back, I was teaching school in the Rochester City School District, and one of the horrors was, seeing young kids. I remember specifically the 2nd grade class that I was teaching. This boy came in and he had all cigarette burns down his arm. I think I told you about it. And it was just heartbreaking. And you think, well, that doesn't really happen, does it? No, it happens. Kids being punished with no meal, and, being put outside in the cold, in February, just as a punishment and stuff like that. Horrible things that you think it can't be happening here. Not today, right? Yeah. So for family members, that maybe are seeing it from the outside looking in, and maybe you think that somebody has a problem, right? And they have small children. What kind of suggestion do you think that you could give somebody like that?
It's tough because I haven't been in that situation personally. I know that you have. So I'd like to hear what you have to say. But I know that one of the biggest things that, even as a family member myself in recovery, I know that person isn't going to change unless they want to make the change. Especially being a sister that's has seen some stuff go down. I think that the biggest thing is just knowing that there's nothing I can do to make that person choose recovery, and it's a very powerless state to be in. But recognizing that I have no control over it kind of takes the weight of that pressure of I need to change them. You can't. They have to want it for themselves. So I don't know what you have to say on that, but I know you have more experience in that area than I do.
One thing that I found is when you're a family member watching somebody else, there's a lot of people that'll give you advice and tell you, just put your foot down. If I were you, I'd go over there and I'd tell them, and it's it's not helpful at all. Every circumstance, every situation is different. But if there's one like word of wisdom that I can give anybody, it's be kind to the children. Give them attention. When you do see them, if they're dirty, don't turn your head. Clean them. Help them, wash them up. Buy them a new outfit. Take them to the store. Just love them a little bit. Say a kind word. Smile. Those kind of things, they mean a lot to a child who isn't getting that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's such a good way of intervening without intervening. You know what I mean? It's like you're taking care of the child still. And the focus isn't necessarily on the parent getting better. It is, but it's more, well, I know I can help the child because it's a child. I like that perspective.
Yeah. And by doing that too, I think another way it helps is instead of giving all that attention to like the parent that is being neglectful or abusive, right? The child sees that the attention isn't going there. Like, oh, what do I have to do to get to attention now, right? It kind of like interrupts the cycle a little bit.
It does, and a lot of times when a child isn't getting that attention, they're gonna pick up on those not so great behaviors and are gonna be more at risk for substance use as well. So
yeah, I know one thing that seems to be really helpful, and I know it helped you. Okay, is art, right? Artwork.
Yes.
And there's something very meditative and freeing about being able to draw or paint or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So even like involving a child, because who doesn't like art? I mean, there's some fashion that's going to be fun, whether it's chalking on the sidewalk, right? Or painting a picture, sculpture, whatever.
It can be so healing for a child, especially because their little brains are so filled with imagination as it is. And I mean, their memory of like everything that's like they're sharp. Like kids are smart. And I still remember this one episode of Law and Order SVU, and I'm not gonna get into it, but
Dun, 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 dun. How does it go? It's something.
Dun dun.
Oh, that's it. Dun,
And
dun.
anyways, so I remember Detective Benson. She sat down like this little kid and asked him, or just had like crayons and stuff, and he actually drew out, the crime scene, like what happened, and it was like evidence and everything else, and it's like, man, like, I specifically remember that episode because when working with kids and working with young people, it's like, how do we heal from what has hurt us? And art has always been a huge thing for me, but also, I mean, I see it in a lot of other people, not even young people, just people in general.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And a lot of times it gives them an avenue to have an outlet where maybe they don't have the courage to say the words of what's bothering them, but maybe they can draw it or express it in some other way.
Yep.
And, another little tip is a lot of times children don't know they don't know how to express that they're uncomfortable, like in an emotional situation or whatever. So it often turns into a stomach ache. I have a stomach ache. And like that's like, keep your ears open. If you hear I have a stomach ache all the time from a small child, it might be like an emotional issue or something that they're experiencing at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, stress does manifest itself in physical ways. So, I mean, we as adults know that, when we're stressed, we get a headache or we do get a stomach ache. It's like, so do kids.
Yeah. Okay, we have to go to a break, but we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching Roc'N Recovery this week. We got a little serious on our topics,
Yeah. It took a serious turn, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
It was good information.
Absolutely. And if there's anybody out there that needs help, whether you need treatment for addiction or if you're a family member that's struggling and you just have some questions that you'd like answered, you can always contact us at Mission Recovery. What's the phone number?
585-944-4270.
Very good. All right. All right. Well, we will see you next time right here on Roc'N Recovery.